Dear learners, welcome back to Research Methodology course. In this video, I will give you some tips for conducting an effective literature review. So let's move on to those tips. Tip number 1. Yes, of course, the topic of the research study is the starting point for identifying the relevant literature. So you can start reading textbook or journal article written for general audience rather than straight away you start reading scholarly article. This will give the researcher a good foundation and background knowledge to understand what is discussed in a scholarly article. Tip number 2. Once the researchers start reading a few general books or papers on the topic, researcher will get an overview of the key ideas and theories and things like who developed them and when they have developed, etc. Only when the researcher have grasped the key ideas in his field, then he should try to get more specific literature. Tip number 3. The researcher need to show through the research or review how his research fit into a big picture relating to it what has been done before by others. See, why we include literature review in an article or a thesis? It is to give some background and the context to our own work. So, it is always better to the researcher to show through his review that how his research fit into a big picture. Tip number 4. The researcher need to make sure he understands this key concept as they will help him to read and interpret other purposes which are built upon these ideas. Tip number 5. Use other people's bibliographies to find more number of quality articles. See, even if the researcher can only find one good quality paper regarding to his area of study, read that article's introduction and its review carefully and see who they cite and also see who else has cited that one paper since it was published. So these steps will lead you to several valuable papers which you didn't find with some search engines. So once you identify a research article, then go to its bibliography part or the reference part. Here you can see the number of articles that particular researcher has cited. So definitely you can also cite those articles or literature article in your study for identifying the relevant topics and all. Tip number 6. Once the above stage, that means the step number or the tip number 5 is over, the researcher can start to look for specific papers, especially the world-changing literature in the selected area of study. Tip number 7. There may be several angles to which one can make his research, and hence the researcher may have to explore many areas of the literature. So divide the literature search into sections, that means some subtopics or key terms, etc., to make it easier to manage. So for each section, identify some several keywords to try out in different combinations. Moving to tip number 8. Even if the research or your search section wise, still there may be thousands of papers. So to make it easier, make the keyword for search more specific. You can look at the number of citations of an article that shows the quality of article. And then the another way is you can glance through the abstract to make a quick decision as to whether it will be relevant to my study or not. Then tip number 9. The researcher may not be able to read everything that is written on a particular research paper immediately. So what we can do, the researcher can rank them like A, B or C. That A may be must read, this highly relevant literature article. Then you can rank a particular research article like B. That means it is unsure, probably it might be relevant to my study, and C, it may be probably irrelevant, etc. So this kind of ranking will help you to read the most relevant article immediately. Then moving to tip number 10. While doing any serious research, make sure that your research idea is original. Then tip number 11. When you finally start writing your literature review, focus on ideas and use examples from the literature you reviewed so far to illustrate them. The aim should always be cite the most or the best and most relevant research and strengthen the objectives of your research, quality of arguments you are proposing rather than going to mere quantity. So it is not like you are reviewing 50 articles or 100 articles, but you have to review the most relevant article that is fit into your study. Tip number 12. It may be noted that writing research review is not like writing a textbook. So you need to write only what is specifically relevant to your area of study or your current research. Tip number 13. Remember not to include in the review anything when the researcher haven't read or understood the original. And the last tip for your literature review is, the final point is that it makes time and practice to figure out what makes a good literature review and what makes a bad one. So you start working on your literature review part only by your experience. You will be more good in writing a good literature review. So start your work. All the best. We will see you in the next video. Till then, keep learning. Thank you.